Chisome, what do you think you are doing? Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a woman named Chisome. She was known for her gentle nature and hardworking spirit. Chisome was married to Kelvin, a man who ran a small shop in the village. They led a simple life and had been married for many years, their bond seemingly unbreakable. However, Chisome carried a secret, one that Kelvin knew little about. Chisome had been deaf since childhood. It wasn't something she hid from Kelvin, but the real secret was that she secretly wore a hearing aid, often hidden beneath her hair. Her hearing had deteriorated as a child, and over the years, she had become used to the silence. Yet, with the help of the hearing aid, Chisome could still hear bits and pieces of the world around her. She didn't tell Kelvin about it, fearing that it might make him think she was hiding things from him. Though Kelvin knew she struggled to hear, he had no idea that Chisome could sometimes hear everything clearly when she wore the hearing aid. One evening, after Kelvin returned home from the shop, Chisome sat quietly on the couch, her hair loosely covering the hearing aid tucked behind her ear. She smiled as Kelvin entered, calling out her name. Chisome listened intently, pretending she hadn't heard his footsteps, but she could hear them clearly. Kelvin sat beside her, talking about his day, and Chisome smiled, nodding occasionally, careful not to let him know she could hear everything. She had learned to smile and act as though she was lost in the silence, but the hearing aid gave her a window into the conversations Kelvin had with others. Later that evening, after dinner, Kelvin invited Chisome to go for a walk. They strolled down the village paths, the sound of crickets filling the air. Kelvin spoke animatedly about a new idea for his shop, but Chisome wasn't paying attention to his words. In her mind, her thoughts were elsewhere, focused on something that had been bothering her for weeks. As they walked, Chisome secretly turned on her hearing aid. She had learned to adjust the volume to avoid drawing attention, but this time it was different. Kelvin's words were no longer just random chatter about his shop, they were unsettling. Through the hearing aid, Chisome overheard things she was never meant to hear: Kelvin's whispered conversations with other women, his confessions of infidelity, and the plans he had made behind her back. She heard him laugh and speak intimately to others, saying things he had never said to her. Chisome was stunned. The man she had loved, the man she had trusted, had been hiding secrets of his own. She stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. Kelvin didn't notice the change in her demeanor, too caught up in his excitement about the future. But Chisome's world had shifted. She could no longer pretend she didn't know what Kelvin had been doing. She knew the truth. The smile, the sweet kisses, the affection he showed her were all part of a carefully crafted facade. Behind it all, Kelvin had been living a double life. As they continued their walk, Kelvin began to talk about his plans for the future, plans that didn't include her. Chisome's mind raced as she heard him make arrangements to spend time with someone else. He spoke of trips he had arranged, of things he was planning with another woman. It was as if Chisome had never existed in those plans at all. She tried to keep her composure, fighting the urge to confront him right then and there, but the secret was too heavy to bear. Kelvin's words echoed in her ears as they walked in the night, and Chisome realized she had been living in the dark, not just about her hearing but about Kelvin's true nature. The man she had loved was not the man she thought he was. She had heard enough to know the truth. She no longer had any illusions about who Kelvin really was. When they returned home, Chisome sat quietly in the living room, her hearing aid still hidden beneath her hair. Kelvin went on about his day completely unaware that his wife had overheard everything. Kelvin continued his day as usual. But Chisome was changed. The truth had been revealed to her, and she knew that the smiles, sweet kisses, and gentle words were nothing but a mask. Behind it all, Kelvin had been playing a dangerous game, and now Chisome knew who he truly was. Chisome's life had always been full of quiet, subtle gestures. Her husband, Kelvin, had learned to communicate with her using sign language and small signals, things that had become second nature to them. He would tap his fingers gently on the table when he needed her attention or brush his hand lightly across her shoulder when he wanted to express affection. She had grown used to this silent dance between them, but now Chisome understood that she had been oblivious to much more than just his words. She had been unaware of the depth of Kelvin's secrets, and now, with her hearing aid, everything was becoming clear. It was a normal evening, and Kelvin was busy in the shop, but something felt different to Chisome. Her senses were heightened, and her new hearing aid allowed her to catch every whisper, every faint sound that came through the house. When Kelvin returned home that evening, he was accompanied by two men, strangers who seemed out of place. They carried a large traveling bag, and Chisome watched them closely. She had always trusted Kelvin, but now, with the newfound clarity of her hearing aid, she could hear every word they spoke from where she sat, hidden in the shadows of the living room. Chisome overheard the conversation. The two men were speaking in low voices, but her hearing aid amplified their words, bringing their plans into focus. Kelvin, her husband, was not just a man who had betrayed her trust, he was a criminal. She heard them talking about illegal dealings, about money, and about a plan to tie someone up and leave them stranded in the middle of the road. Chisome's heart raced as the realization set in. Kelvin wasn't just cheating on her with other women, he was involved in something much darker, something far more dangerous. She had seen the signs, the late-night meetings, the secretive conversations, the sudden changes in his behavior, but now she had concrete proof. Kelvin had been playing her for a fool, and it wasn't just her heart he had broken. He had been leading a double life, one filled with lies and criminal activity. The fear that coursed through Chisome was overwhelming, but she fought to keep her composure. She couldn't let Kelvin know that she had overheard anything. She had to stay calm, to think clearly, but inside, everything was unraveling. Her once beloved husband was a stranger to her now, someone who had hidden his true self behind the love and affection he had once shown her. As she listened to the men discuss their plans, one of them stepped closer to Kelvin, lowering his voice even further. "We share the money with him, the other guy," he said. "Then we'll tie him up and leave him in the middle of the road. No one will know what happened." Chisome's mind raced as panic set in. She had to act quickly, but how could she confront Kelvin without putting herself in danger? Chisome knew she had to act quickly to stop Kelvin from carrying out his dark plans. She managed to stay calm, slipping silently out of the room and into the hallway without making a sound. She pulled out her phone and texted her mother, "Mom, call the police. Kelvin is planning something dangerous." It was a simple message, but it was enough to get the help she needed. Her mother knew that if Chisome was asking for the police, it was serious. Chisome returned to the living room and pretended to be oblivious as if she had no idea what was happening. Kelvin and the two men continued their conversation, unaware of the message that had just been sent. The tension in the room was palpable, but Chisome did not show any signs of fear. She kept her face neutral, doing everything she could to prevent Kelvin from seeing through her calm facade. Minutes later, the sound of sirens pierced the air, growing louder with each passing second. The police had arrived. Chisome's heart pounded in her chest as she watched Kelvin's face shift from smug confidence to shock and panic. He had no idea what was coming. The two men were immediately apprehended, and Kelvin was surrounded by officers who quickly placed him in handcuffs. The criminal activities he had been involved in for months had come to an end, and it was all because of Chisome's bravery in the face of fear. As Kelvin was led away in handcuffs, Chisome felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. She had uncovered the truth about his infidelity, his lies, and his criminal actions, but it came at a great cost. The man she had once loved had betrayed her in ways she could never have imagined. The life they had built together was shattered, and Chisome knew that nothing would ever be the same. Despite the heartbreak, Chisome stood tall, knowing she had done the right thing. She had uncovered the truth, exposed the lies, and taken action before it was too late. Her hearing aid had not only revealed her husband's secret world but had also given her the strength to confront the reality she had long been blind to. Now, as Kelvin faced the consequences of his actions, Chisome knew she could move forward, stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to reclaim her life. The story teaches us that we must be aware and trust ourselves, even when the truth is hard to face. Chisome's experience shows that lies and secrets can't stay hidden forever, and it's better to face the truth, no matter how painful. It also reminds us that sometimes we need to take action, even if we're scared, to take control of our lives and protect ourselves. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to our channel for more stories.